Weathrbell Analytics meteorologist Joe Bastardi. You like a parade? Well, we got a parade of tropical storms in the Pacific, and this area of invest in the Atlantic over here, which is likely not to develop. And I want to make a comment on the Western Pacific. Normally, by this time of the year, we've had 5 typhoons. This year, we've only had one, and since March 1st, this has been an almost record-breaking low activity in the Western Pacific. And of course, the Atlantic basin has been quite quiet. And by all appearances, it appears it'll be quiet right through the month of August. And the reason I'm saying that is because of what's going on with large scale subsidence over the Atlantic basin. And I'll try to show you that in just a moment. Um, Here's the dust that's coming off Africa, and it continues to come in waves. What's left of that area that was down in the Bahamas is recurving with a frontal boundary off the eastern seaboard of the United States. This looked like it was going to try to develop earlier, given the pattern, but when we got to Thursday, and again I'm going to show you this in just a moment, the Japanese model came in and had a very different look to it, and I love using that model to try to portray what is going to go on as far as long-term tropical development. Here's the sea surface temperatures. You notice the Arctic is cooler than normal, and that's because there's a lot of melting going on. Whenever something freezes, it releases heat into the atmosphere. When it melts, it does the opposite. It takes energy out of the atmosphere, and that's why you see that cooling up there. It's not a sign that the Arctic is getting cold, but you got to understand that's a self-regulator. That's why the melting that goes on actually, in a way, preserves the ice cap because it makes it cooler over the top. Now, you've all heard how warm it is in Greenland, and it is. It's been very warm in Greenland, but back in April, I was on quite publicly stating that some of the guys on my side of the issue that were making some of all the noise about the past 2 years in Greenland, I better watch out because this year is going to be a lot of melting. And what's interesting is that the people pushing the melting now won't even acknowledge what happened the previous 2 winters or previous 2 summers, where we had very, very cold summers on Greenland that prevented a lot of melting. So, my point is that what you're seeing up in Greenland, I saw a tweet from AOC that this is a sign of global warming. Hillary Clinton's getting on board. I mean, the Hillary Clinton thing is funny because Russia has been very, very cold, and she certainly didn't ignore Russia when she was the Secretary of State. So maybe she's ignoring Russia now because she's not aware of how cold it is over there. But I wanted to point this out here too. The sea surface temperatures. That's going to be very important for the winter season because that signal there and that signal there, this implies ridging across Greenland, ridging in northwest North America, and we've been very public about the idea that there's going to be some extreme cold into the United States this winter again. All right, another probably what they'll call a polar vortex incident, but this is a kind of situation that you become concerned for things like that when you get all that warm water up there. This is the mark of the El Nino. Here's a lot of cold water just to the west of Australia again. And here's the attempted La Nina going on. The Atlantic, whenever it's warmer to the north than in the tropical regions, it leads to an imbalance in the surface pressures and the wind oscillation, which favors a lot of sinking over the Atlantic Ocean. That's what you're doing. You're going to get a lot of upward motion this hurricane season out here for their typhoon season, but corresponding sinking over the Atlantic basin. And here's a picture of the Japanese model for the month of August, showing a lot of subsidence in the Atlantic basin. And again, I use these Saturday summaries in the public, we display for the public to get some points across. And just remember, back in the spring, I was saying you got to look out this year in Hawaii. And what will probably happen is that heat and hurricanes won't be such a big deal for the United States compared to this is the place you're going to have to go rev up hysteria over tropical cyclones during the tropical cyclone season. Now I want to show you this, the Atlantic Basin over the next week. Now this is this tropical wave we have out here. It starts to recurve here. The system off the South Atlantic coast goes out in this old front over here. But watch this drying that comes across. That's week one. Week two, we're dry again in the main development regions. And notice how the precip shuts down in Africa. So as we're rolling into the height of the hurricane season, the African wave train is weaker than normal. Now, it's not going to fall apart completely, so we don't see anything at all from out there. But it goes with the forecast that we issued for you back in April, that the main development regions would have a lot of trouble this year. We have to look out for in-close development. And what I expect to happen down the road is that late August and September, there'll be a lot of ridging going on here. And even if the African wave train isn't active, I showed you this last year, whenever you get positives over here during the hurricane season, you got to look out for features trying to be in close, whether they develop from off Africa or they develop in close. So, but this is a very, very bearish look right now. Okay, here's the upcoming week for you beginning tomorrow, so you'll be able to plan your week. Very warm in the western part of the United States, a lot of cool in the central part of the United States. A back and forth pattern leads to near normal temperatures over the northeast. Here's the precipitation over the next week against the normals. You can see we have above normal precipitation here, and there's that streak off the South Atlantic coast. And Texas is getting dry, and when Texas starts to dry, they're going to start to fry, especially the week after. While there'll be a lot of cool air week two up in this area, it's liable to be extremely hot in Texas, their hottest of the summer. They haven't had a hot summer in Texas. So this is the hottest weather of the year coming at them. Here's what's going on in Europe, and this is off the edge of the map, but very, very cold across Russia. And you see the warmth in the western part of Europe over here. And of course, this gets the headlines and this gets ignored. It's not good to ignore Russia, okay? For other reasons too. Haha. Only kidding. The world's such a mad place. You gotta have a sense of humor. It's kind of funny. I was down in D.C. doing a talk at a climate conference, and I put some funny stuff in it was about hurricanes, but I like to liven things up. So in the middle of it, we had someone call in impersonating the president, and I was just to get a laugh. And I see people going, on the other side of the issue, get all bent out of shape. I know something. You got to be able to laugh, okay? Even if you disagree with someone, you don't have to dislike them. And maybe it wasn't a funny bit. I thought it was a funny bit, but I don't know about you folks, but it seems to me that there's very little humor left today. I mean, and yet one of the things that I'm a little bit have some angst. I'll call it angst, is that life has never been better on planet Earth. And yet we're making it look like an apocalypse is coming and people are enraged. And it's almost like the rage feeds upon itself. And yet when I go and look, I go, well, what are you against? You against prosperity going up? And, well, I'm against the temperature going up. Okay, I can understand that. But no one knows what the perfect temperature of the planet is. Maybe it's another degree warmer. That's the best for life. Okay, you don't know those things. But there's a lack of humor today. And if you notice some of the stuff I do, I had little snide comments, and I'm just playing around. I mean, I like to smile. I've always been like that. And I like, I actually enjoy a lot of times talking to people on the other side of the issue on anything, as long as they're civil and we can exchange ideas. Usually there's some places you do agree. Anyway, there goes my lecture for the day. I'm sorry, I digress. I don't even know what that word means. Okay, so here's your a lot of above normal precipitation coming for Europe, and that's going to help to cool things down over here. Okay, listen, Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, with Marlon Brando is on in the background over here. So, they're just getting hit by a tidal wave if you've ever seen the movie. I've got to go. Listen, don't let things get you down. Even if you're on the opposite side of me, come on. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.